Hello, fellow witches and wizards. My name is PhoenixGinny, and welcome to the stream. Welcome back to Storytime Saturday. Storytime Saturday number 8, I think. We will be reading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone chapters 15 and 16. And then next week, we'll be reading chapter 17, and that will be the end of Sorcerer's Stone. We'll move on to Chamber of Secrets, chapter 1, Chamber of Secrets, next week. Yay, yay, yay! So exciting. It's been a while. I haven't been uploading a lot lately, and if you're new or unaware of what's going on, I got a new job. I got a job, full-time job, 40 hours a week. So the uploads won't be super regular, but I still want to stream, and I still want to do Storytime Saturdays especially. So here we are, still doing it. Yeah, sorry that I didn't have it last week. I was sick. It was a stressful, long, stressful week. My new job is not fun. So, I could manage it. My stomach was completely upside down. So yeah, sorry about last week, but we are back. We are here. We are doing it. If this is your first time ever, hello, hello, hello. Know that this is not strictly an audiobook. I will be reading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, not my book. Chapters 15 and 16. I keep saying it and then forgetting it. But I will be stopping every once in a while to talk about it and to talk about my thoughts about it. So if that's not what you're into, if you'd rather just not hear me talk about it, that you would just rather you hear somebody read the book, I suggest you purchase the audiobook. Because that's not what we do here. We analyze and explore and enjoy rather than strictly read here at Storytime Saturdays. Also, what else was I going to say about that? I normally say something. Oh, spoilers, that's it. It's been so long since I've done this, I feel like. I'm rusty. Spoilers. I've read all the books multiple times. I've seen all the movies. I've played half of the games, but I've seen other people play the other half I haven't played. I'll spoil everything and anything is my point. So if you don't want any spoilers, I also suggest that you watch something else, because I will spoil things. And yeah, so glad that you're here, and we're going to have a good time. I'm going to talk about something real quick though. I was editing the last Storytime Saturday, Storytime number 7, and I devastatingly realized I skipped a whole section from the book. I feel awful about it. And I'm debating whether or not I should just read it to you now. So what I was doing is I was rewatching the video, and I can't remember why I decided to do this, but I decided to read along with myself. So I was listening to myself read while reading it, and I was like, I've noticed that I sometimes make up words. I'm just like, it doesn't say that. That's not the word. No, you completely misread that word. Or I would put a word in that wasn't there originally. Or I take a word out or whatever. And I'm just like, Erica, read the book. Read what it says. Also, I also noticed this about myself, is I don't always enunciate all my words. And so, like, I'll completely, like, skip over like, if I say the word didn't, sometimes the NT doesn't register when I say it. And so it sounds like I said did rather than didn't. Two completely different words, completely changes the meaning of the sentence. And that's really annoying. And I'm just noticing when you record yourself, you notice things that you do that you didn't notice before. So I want to pronounce everything that I say clearly so I can be understood. Also, I completely missed a section because I stopped at the section. I talked about something, and then when I came back, okay, well, it'll make sense when I show you the section I'm talking about. Okay. I don't know if you can even see that. Okay. It's a little blurry, but it says, shh. Hagrid looked around quickly. Okay, so I read the shh part, and I started talking. And then I didn't mark where I was. I needed to, when I was finished saying whatever comment it was, I went back to the book to read it, and I skipped down to the second shush and continued from there, because the shush is all I remembered. I didn't realize there were two of them, and so I skipped down to the second one. You really can't read that. That doesn't even look like a word. Or at least in my OBS, I can't read it. But anyway, it says shush down there. And so I thought that was the first shush, so I kept reading from there. So between the first shush and the second shush, I completely missed. I was a little confused when I was reading it, where Hagrid was like, come see me later. I'm not promising I'll tell you anything, mind, but don't go rabbiting about it here. And I'm just like, telling you what? Like, I knew that they were talking about, like, the Nicholas Flamel and the, enchantments guarding the Sorcerer's Stone and stuff. They were talking about Sorcerer's Stone, but Hagrid just sort of started talking about it like, we'll talk about this later. It's like they didn't really start talking about it. What? I was a little confused when I read it, but I just kept going. I didn't think anything of it. To be honest, I was trying to finish this chapter quickly the last time because my throat started to hurt. Every once in a while, I'll get this burning sensation in my throat when I read out loud. And I was like, I gotta finish this. So I was just like, blah, 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 just finish. And I wasn't really thinking what I was saying. So I just feel awful about that. Good thing this isn't an audiobook because it wouldn't be a very good one. So I will read that. I'll just read the whole section just to make sure that we got it. All right. So they're at the Quidditch pitch, right? Aren't they? Isn't that where this is? No, it isn't. Where is this? They're at the library. I thought they were at the Quidditch pitch. That's really weird. Why did I think that? Am I in the right chapter? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, they're in the library. Hermione just pulled out the book. Did she? No. They already talked about it. No. I'll never remember this. They're studying. Harry was looking up Dittany and 1,000 Magical Herbs and Fungi. And, okay, so they're studying. And then Hagrid comes in, and he's like, you're still looking for Nicholas Flamel, are you? And they're like, oh, we figured that out ages ago. Then Ron's like, oh, we found out who he is ages ago. Says Ron impressively. And we know what the dog's guarding. It's a sorceress. Shh. Hagrid looked around quickly to see if anyone was listening. Don't go shouting about it. What's the matter with you? There are a few things we wanted to ask you, as a matter of fact, said Harry, about what's guarding the stone apart from Fluffy. And that's the part we missed, and that's why Hagrid was like, we'll talk later. Shh, said Hagrid again. Listen, come and see me later. I'm not promising I'll tell you anything, mind, but don't go rabbiting about it in here. Students aren't supposed to know. They'll think I've told you. All right. There. I've fixed it. All is right with the universe. And it makes me think, how many other sections have I skipped? So I need to put my finger where I am when I'm talking to you about something. Okay. So there's that. But before I will continue, I will mention some other things. So just the normal things. Hi, welcome. Hello. Press the like button. The like button is my friend right now. It is more important than ever because I won't be uploading as often, and so in order to make up for that, I need more likes. So a like is helpful. Even if you're watching the video after the fact, you do not have to be a subscriber. It doesn't cost you anything. It is super easy. Just click the thumbs up button underneath the screen. Super easy. Tells YouTube, hey, you like this. I'm going to share this with someone else. I'm going to put it on some page so that somebody somewhere sees it, and so I can get more viewers, so that I can get more views, so I can get more subscribers, so I can quit my job and do this, because this is way more fun. Please, please, please. Thank you. And subscribe if you want to. Click the subscribe button if you want more content like this. It'll end up in your feed, so you can see the next time I upload something, and click the notification bell right next to it so you can be notified when I go live. When I upload, it'll be sent right to your inbox the moment that I go live or I upload, so you can see it right away. I do have a regular live stream schedule. It's just different than what it's been. I will live stream every Friday and Saturday, except the last Saturday of the month. Except this Saturday is an exception, because it was my birthday month. I reserve the last Saturday of every month to go visit my parents. But I already visited. There's another example where I kind of skirted over the ED. Visited my parents this month for my birthday, so I'm not seeing them this Saturday at the end of the month. But next month, at the last Saturday of the month, I'm going to see my parents. But every Saturday, apart from that one, I'm going to be streaming at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Storytime Saturday. And on every Friday night, some Fridays it'll be at 8 p.m. and other Fridays it'll be at 6, depending on if I go to the gym or not. I go to the gym every other day-ish. My gym schedule is... I work out on my high carb days, so I do the carb cycling diet, and so this week my high carb days will be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So I'll be exercising Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So I won't be exercising Friday. So I'll be streaming at 6 p.m. on Friday. Whereas on Fridays where I do exercise, I'll be streaming at 8 because I go to the gym beforehand. But I'll let you know. Like, that's really hard to remember. So I'll let you know. If you follow me on Twitter, My Twitter handle is, it's not really a handle. You can't click on it to go to Twitter. I don't know how that works. Maybe I could copy a link and put it in my description. I don't know. But my Twitter name is down in the description. It's at PhoenixGinny. Capital P, capital G, and you switch the E and the O around. Follow me there. I will let you know when I stream. You'll know ahead of time. I'll have a link to the stream ahead of time, and I also post my uploads there in case you don't get notified for whatever reason. I post it all there. If you need to know when the stream is going to be, it'll be there. So check me out there. Or click that notification bell so you can be notified. I think that's it. I streamed yesterday. I said on Twitter that I was going to stream tomorrow. I decided I don't want to stream on Sundays. I need a day, or at least an afternoon and evening, to just not be obligated to do anything. Like, I have to go to church in the morning, but after that, I just want to go home and work on stuff for my channel. That's literally the only day I have guaranteed. I'm going to try and do stuff for my channel in the evenings. I write during my lunch break at work so that I don't have to write in the evenings, so I can work on my YouTube channel in the evenings. But there's only so much I can do because there's only about an hour. I only have about an hour in the evenings. But Sunday is my day to just not be obligated to do anything. So I don't want to stream on Sunday. So I'm streaming Friday nights instead. So I'm not streaming tomorrow. I streamed last night instead. And if you missed that, it is currently on my channel. You can view the straight up live stream, or you can watch the edited version, which just cuts out the first few minutes and the last few minutes. So you can just get, to the meat of it. But it's there. So I played Nancy Drew, Sea of Darkness, Part 3. So yeah, you can enjoy that. Okay, I think that's it. I think we can actually read this now. I feel like I've been... Oh, that's right. I was like, I feel like even though I haven't been reading Harry Potter, I've been involved in Harry Potter things recently, and I couldn't remember what it was. At work, my work is really monotonous, so like I listen to stuff. I listen to YouTube while I'm at work, and so I've been re-listening to Harry Potter musical, the first one, all three of them. I'm on the second one, and it's just fun. So I'll probably be quoting that a lot. I was quoting that a lot anyway. Fun stuff. So good. Watch it over and over and over again. It never gets old. But anyway, you don't care about that. I hope you do. I hope you do care about that. I assume that people who watch this are Harry Potter fans. That's the idea. Water today, not hot chocolate. It's low carb day. In fact, I have food on the counter over there for the meal prep I'm going to do after the stream. I'm going to make a cauliflower bake for my low carb days. Okay, anyway. Chapter 15, The Forbidden Forest. Things couldn't have been worse. Filch took them. Oh, that's right. Filch caught them. Oh, yeah. Dang. Things are going to suck. Oh, my goodness. No. Harry. Oh, jeez. I just want to tell Harry. Get used to this. Because you're going to be experiencing this kind of ridicule on and off for the next 6 years. We'll get there. Filch took them down to Professor McGonagall's study on the first floor, where they sat and waited without saying a word to each other. Hermione was trembling. Excuses, alibis, and wild cover-up stories chased each other around Harry's brain, each more feeble than the last. He couldn't see how they were going to get out of trouble this time. They were cornered. How could they have been so stupid as to forget the cloak? There was no reason on earth that Professor McGonagall would accept for their being out of bed and creeping around the school in the dead of night, let alone being up the tallest astronomy tower, which was out of bounds except for classes. Add Norbert and the invisibility cloak, and they might as well be packing their bags already. I feel like if they had went to Dumbledore and been like, Dumbledore, you know Hagrid has a dragon in his hut, right? You should probably do something about that. I'm sure Dumbledore would have been down. I'm sure he'd been like, hey, yeah, Ron, you got a brother that deals with dragons. Let's talk to him. I'm sure Dumbledore would have been... I'm sure Dumbledore wouldn't have told on Hagrid. Dumbledore would have been cool with it. He would have helped. But Harry, there's one thing that Harry Potter doesn't do, and that's go for help. He automatically takes everything as his own responsibility for whatever reason. Voldemort's in the school. I'll go get him. Snape's gonna go down the trapdoor. I'll go get him. To be fair, he does suggest going to Dumbledore. He goes to him and Hermione and Ron. They go to Professor McGonagall, and they're like, someone's gonna try and steal the Sorcerer's Stone. And McGonagall's like, well, Dumbledore's gone, but I seriously doubt that. It's well protected. Don't worry. Which I get. I get why Harry would be like, okay, fine. Well, I'm not gonna ask for help anymore because no one listens to me. You still could try, you know? Like, it's always up to him. He always feels like it's up to him to get it done. I feel like Dumbledore would have been cool with it if they had just told him. Of course, I wouldn't even know how he would even... Like, Harry doesn't even know where Dumbledore's office is at this point. I don't know. I feel like there's a way easier solution to this, is what I'm trying to say. Had Harry thought that things couldn't have been worse, he was wrong. When Professor McGonagall appeared, she was leading Neville. Harry, Neville burst out the moment he saw the other two. I was trying to find you to warn you. I heard Malfoy saying he was going to catch you. He said you had a Shh, Neville! Harry shook his head violently to shut Neville up, but Professor McGonagall had seen. She looked more likely to breathe fire than Norbert as she towered over the three of them. I would never have believed it of any of you. Mr. Filch says you are up in the astronomy tower. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Explain yourselves." It was the first time Hermione had ever failed to answer a teacher's question. She was staring at her slippers, as still as a statue. Still, I feel like they could have explained it. Professor, listen. Listen. Hagrid has an illegal dragon, okay? Look, and I think McGonagall would have been okay with it too. I know McGonagall is severe, but she's not unreasonable. She's I think she'd be cool too. I think that she would be "Oh, I see what you're trying to do." Not that she wouldn't punish them. She'd still punish them. But, I mean, it would still go over better, instead of just nothing. Oh, but what ends up happening is kind of interesting. Oh, I didn't mark my spot again. No! Maybe I should use my bookmark as a helper for me. Where am I? I think I have a good idea of what's been going on, said Professor McGonagall. It doesn't take a genius to work it out. You fed Draco Malfoy some cock and bull story about a dragon trying to get him out of bed and into trouble. I think that's something he would do. I don't think that's something Harry and Ron and Hermione would do. But, I've already caught him. I suppose you think it's funny that Longbottom here... Oh, no! Neville! Neville, no! No! It's not what you think! No! This is painful! I forget. You forget how painful it is until it hits you. Sometimes it hits you all over again. That Neville had heard that I suppose you think it's funny that Neville here heard the story and believed it too? And I'm whoa! An explanation we don't have to give the real one. Good. Harry caught Neville's eye and tried to tell him without words that this wasn't true, because Neville was looking stunned and hurt. Poor blundering Neville. Harry knew what it must have cost him to try and find them in the dark, to warn them. No, Neville, no. I'm sorry. That sucks. Do they ever explain it to him? I hope so. Listen, dude. And I'm disgusted, said Professor McGonagall. 4 students, out of bed in one night. I've never heard of such a thing before. You, Miss Granger, I thought you'd had more sense. As for you, Mr. Potter, I thought Gryffindor meant more to you than this. All 3 of you will receive detentions. Yes, you too, Mr. Longbottom. Nothing gives you the right to walk around school at night, especially these days. It's very dangerous. And 50 points will be taken from Gryffindor. What does she mean? Especially these days. It's very dangerous. Voldemort is not even back yet. What are you talking about? I don't know. Wait, she said 50, right? She already said that. 50, She did. "50," Harry gasped. They would lose the lead he'd won in the last Quidditch match. 50 points each, said Professor McGonagall, breathing heavily through her long, pointed nose. Professor, please, you can't... Don't tell me what I can't and can't do, Potter. Now get back to bed, all of you. I've never been more ashamed of Gryffindor students. And it's gonna hit. And the shit's about to hit the fan, okay? I mean, good thing later on in the books the points don't matter. Because this is rough. It's about to get rough. 150 points lost. That put Gryffindor in last place. In one night, they'd ruined any chance Gryffindor had had for the House Cup. Harry felt as though the bottom had dropped out of his stomach. How could they ever make up for this? Harry didn't sleep all night. He could hear Neville sobbing into his pillow for what seemed like hours. Harry couldn't think of anything to say to comfort him. He knew Neville, like himself, was dreading the dawn. What would happen when the rest of Gryffindor found out what they'd done? At first, Gryffindors passing the giant hourglasses that recorded the house points the next day thought there'd been a mistake. How could they suddenly have 150 points fewer than yesterday? And then the story started to spread. Harry Potter, the famous Harry Potter, their hero of 2 Quidditch matches, had lost them all those points. Him and a couple of other stupid first years. Him and whoever else was in, we don't really care. Oh. This will happen a lot. I marked that in my book. I was like, dude, get used to this. Get used to people not liking you. It's gonna happen a lot. The next one, they're gonna think you're the heir of Slytherin. Prisoner of Azkaban. I don't think it really happens in Prisoner of Azkaban. Goblet of Fire, they're going to think that you cheated and put your name in the Goblet of Fire. Don't even get me started on Order of the Phoenix, okay? Don't even get me started on the Daily Prophet and all the garbage that happens in that one. And then all the way up, like the 6th one is actually like a big turnaround. He's all of a sudden like super popular and everybody wants him. All the girls want him all of a sudden. It's crazy. It's interesting. The public is so fickle. And then back to Deathly Hallows, where it becomes undesirable number 1. So, get used to being disliked. From being one of the most popular and admired people at the school, Harry was suddenly the most hated. Even Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs turned on him because everyone had been longing to see Slytherin lose the House Cup. Everywhere Harry went, people pointed and didn't trouble to lower their voices as they insulted him. Slytherins, on the other hand, clapped as he... Oh, that's the worst! I'm sorry. That's the worst. Oh, no. I can't even. That's the worst. Slytherins clapping as he walked past them, whistling and cheering. Thanks, Potter. We owe you one. Frigga. Oh, you. Oh, my goodness. Only Ron stood by him. Well, yeah. Wait a minute. Ron wasn't there, was he? Hold on, wait a minute. Yeah, no, it was Hermione, Harry, and Neville. Ron wasn't even there. I was like, Ron stood by him. Well, yeah, weren't you in trouble too? No, he wasn't. He wasn't there. I totally forgot about that. Interesting. They'll all forget this in a few weeks. It's true. People are so fickle. So fickle. People are so ready to just destroy you. I don't know. You hear about it all the time. Like, it just makes me think of cancel culture. And how the moment you hear that somebody has an opinion you don't like, supports a political party you don't support, or makes one bad decision, even if it was years ago, and suddenly you want to hang them out to dry. Suddenly you want them canceled. And it's like, you don't even know the circumstances. You don't even know what's going on. And like you have any right to talk anyway. And then you forget about it, a month goes by or whatever, and you forget about it. Anyway. They'll all forget this in a few weeks. Fred and George have lost loads of points in all the time they've been here, and people still like them. They've never lost 150 points in one go, though, have they? said Harry miserably. Well, no, Ron admitted. It was a bit late to repair the damage, but Harry swore to himself not to meddle in things that weren't his business from now on. I put... you can't see it. Ha! Sure! Okay. Press X to doubt. Oh, jeez. He'd had it with sneaking around and spying. He felt so ashamed of himself that he went to Wood and offered to resign from the Quidditch team. What's wrong, Harry? Harry, what's wrong with you? That would make things worse. What are you talking about? Resign? Wood thundered. What good'll that do? How are we going to get any points back if we can't win at Quidditch? But even Quidditch had lost its fun. The rest of the team wouldn't speak to Harry during practice, and if they had to speak about him, they called him the Seeker. Hermione and Neville were suffering too. They didn't have as bad a time as Harry because they weren't as well known, but nobody would speak to them either. Hermione stopped drawing attention to herself in class, keeping her head down and working in silence. Harry was almost glad that the exams weren't far away. All the studying he had to do kept his mind off his misery. He, Ron, and Hermione kept to themselves, working late into the night, trying to remember the ingredients in complicated potions, learn charms and spells by heart, memorize the dates of magical discoveries, and goblin rebellions. Those goblin rebellions. They're going to be studying those like every year. I feel like they talk about the goblin rebellions in passing at least once every book. Then did they ever explain it to Neville? That's what I want to know. Did they ever be like, hey, Neville, no, listen, that's what I want. I want, that bothers me the most. I want them to explain it to Neville. Then about a week before the exams were due to start, Harry's new resolution not to interfere in anything that didn't concern him was put to an unexpected test. Walking back from the library on his own one afternoon, he heard somebody whimpering from a classroom up ahead. As he drew closer, he heard Quirrell's voice. No, not again, please. It sounded as though someone was threatening him. Harry moved closer. All right, he heard Quirrell sob. Next second, Quirrell came hurrying out of the classroom, straightening his turban. He was pale and looked as though he was about to cry. He strode out of sight. Harry didn't think Quirrell had even noticed him. He waited until Quirrell's footsteps had disappeared, then peered into the classroom. It was empty. But a door stood ajar at the other end. Harry was halfway toward it before he remembered what he'd promised himself about not meddling. Of course, if you know the truth, it's pretty obvious that he was talking to Voldemort from the back of his head. I feel like I was going to say something about this, though. I don't remember. Oh, it's also interesting, like, Harry does meddle in things that aren't about him. He does take on problems of his own instead of going for help. But he also has a knack for just ending up in problems in the first place at the same time. Only he overheard this conversation. Nobody else. How does that happen? It's always him that runs into these situations. So you can't entirely blame him, because sometimes he doesn't go looking for trouble. Trouble finds him. All the same, he'd have gambled 12 Sorcerer's Stones that Snape had just left the room. Red herring. And from what Harry had just heard, Snape would be walking with a new spring in his step. Quirrell seemed to have given in at last. I wonder what Voldemort was saying to him. And what what Quirrell had agreed to. Maybe he was like, go down there tonight. And Quirrell's like, all right, not tonight. Soon. Tomorrow. I don't know. Soon. It's coming up soon. I wouldn't have. He'd have gambled 12 Sorcerer Stones. Why did I put I wouldn't have? That's because you know the answer, Erica. That's not fair. That's cheating. I don't know why I wrote that. Harry went back to the library where Hermione was testing Ron on astronomy. Harry told them what he'd heard. Snape's done it then, said Ron. If Quirrell told him how to break his anti-dark force spell. They're still fluffy, though, said Hermione. Maybe Snape's found out how to get past him without asking Hagrid, said Ron, looking up at the thousands of books surrounding them. I bet there's a book somewhere in here telling you how to get past a giant three-headed dog. So what do we do, Harry? He automatically assumes. So, how are we fixing this, Harry? You are the fixer of things. The light of adventure was kindling again in Ron's eyes. That's literally what it says. The light of adventure was kindling again in Ron's eyes. Let's go on an adventure. That's why things happen. Because Harry and his friends went on an adventure. But Hermione answered before Harry could. Go to Dumbledore. That's what we should have done ages ago. Thank you! That's what I've been saying. If we try anything ourselves, we'll be thrown out for sure. But we've got no proof, said Harry. Quirrell's too scared to back us up. Snape's only got to say he doesn't know how the troll got in at Halloween, and that he was nowhere near the third floor. Who do you think they'll believe, him or us? It's not exactly a secret we hate him. Dumbledore will think we made it up to get him sacked. Dumbledore wouldn't think that. Listen, Dumbledore already knows. Let's just get that straight. Dumbledore already knows what's going on, okay? Like, he might not know exactly when Quirrell is going down there, or how, or whatever, but he knows. Snape has told him, I'm sure. So, I mean, anyway. They should have tried. They should have tried. You never know. Filch wouldn't help us if his life depended on it. He's too friendly with Snape, and the more students get thrown out, the better, he'll think. And don't forget, we're not supposed to know about the stone or Fluffy. That'll take a lot of explaining. Hermione looked convinced, but Ron didn't. If we just do a bit of poking around. Ron? Don't encourage him. As much as Ron as it is Harry. Isn't that interesting? Like, that's the thing about Harry, Ron, and Hermione is it's a group effort. It's not just Harry. Like, Ron and Hermione also want to be involved and they want to do things. They're not. They're just as curious and adventurous as he is. No, said Harry flatly. We've done enough poking around. They pulled a map of Jupiter toward him and started to learn the names of its moons. Started to learn? You should have learned by now. It's on the test. The following morning, notes were delivered to Harry, Hermione, and Neville at the breakfast table. They were all the same. Your detention will take place at 11 o'clock tonight. Meet Mr. Filch in the entrance hall. Professor M. McGonagall. Harry had forgotten they still had detentions to do in the furor over the points they'd lost. Furor. Now, I can guess what that word means. It means chaos, probably? An angry or maniacal fit. Rage furor of the god of war. Furor. Hold on. Let me go to good old dictionary.com. Dictionary.com. Cheese pairing. Word of the day is cheese pairing. Okay. Alright. A general outburst of enthusiasm, excitement, controversy, or the like. A prevailing fad, mania, or craze. Fury, rage, madness. How do you pronounce it?
Furor.
Furor. Furor. Okay. Furor. Alright. Cool. Furor. That's a really weird word. Okay. Well, that's what that means. The word of the day is furor, sponsored by the word furor. Over the points. Let me reread that sentence. Harry had forgotten they still had detentions to do in the furor over the points they'd lost. He half expected Hermione to complain that this was a whole night of studying lost, but she didn't say a word. Like Harry, she felt they deserved what they'd got. I'm gonna put angry outburst. That's more or less true. Angry outburst. At 11 o'clock that night, they said goodbye to Ron in the common room and went down to the entrance hall with Neville. Filch was already there, and so was Malfoy. Harry had also forgotten that Malfoy had gotten a detention too. "Follow me," said Filch, lighting a lamp and leading them outside. "I bet you'll think twice about breaking a school rule again, won't ye, eh?" he said, leering at them. "Oh, yes. Hard work and pain are the best teachers, if you ask me. It's just a pity they let the old punishments die out. Hang you by your wrists from the ceiling for a few days. I've got the chains still in my office. Keep 'em well oiled in case they're ever needed. Right, off we go. And don't think of running off now. It'll be worse for you if you do." Was there really ever a time where that was allowed? I highly doubt that Dumbledore allowed such a thing. And there's no way that Filch has been around longer than Dumbledore, so I have no idea what Filch is talking about. Yeah. Remember, Ron's not here. Neville is here, not Ron. That makes it different from the movie. They marched off across the dark grounds. Neville kept sniffing. Harry wondered what their punishment was going to be. It must be something really horrible, or Filch wouldn't be sounding so delighted. The moon was bright, but clouds scudding across it kept throwing them into darkness. What? The moon was bright, but clouds scudding across it kept throwing them into darkness. Ahead, Harry could see the lighted windows of Hagrid's hut. Then they heard a distant shout. "Is that you, Filch? Hurry up, I want to get started." Harry's heart rose. If they were going to be working with Hagrid, it wouldn't be so bad. His relief must have showed in his face, because Filch said, "I suppose you think you'll be enjoying yourself with that oaf? Well, think again, boy. It's into the forest you're going, and I'm much mistaken if you'll all come out in one piece. Please. You know how many times they're going to go to the forest? Every freaking book. Every book they go into the forest. Am I wrong? Am I wrong about that? I think Half-Blood Prince might be the only one where they don't. And they always survive. So, it's also funny that they're getting in trouble for being in a place they shouldn't be. So for detention, they have to go to a place where they shouldn't be. At night. Now they're allowed to be up at night, huh? Anyway. At this, Neville let out a little moan, and Malfoy stopped dead in his tracks. "The forest," he repeated, and he didn't sound quite as cool as usual. "We can't go in there at night. There's all sorts of things in there. Werewolves, I heard." Neville clutched the sleeve of Harry's robe and made a choking noise. "That's your problem, isn't it?" said Filch, his voice cracking with glee. "Should have thought of them werewolves before you got in trouble, shouldn't you?" Hagrid came striding toward them out of the dark, Fang at his heel. He was carrying his large crossbow, and a quiver of arrows hung over his shoulder. "About time," he said. "I've been waiting for half an hour already." "All right, Harry, Hermione." "I shouldn't be too friendly to them, Hagrid," said Filch coldly. "They're here to be punished, after all." "That's why you're late, isn't it?" said Hagrid, frowning at Filch. "Been lecturing them yet, eh? It's not your place to do that. You've done your bit. I'll take over from here." "I'll be back at dawn," said Filch. "For what's left of them," he added nastily, and he turned and started back toward the castle, his lamp bobbing away in the darkness. Malfoy now turned to Hagrid. "I'm not going into that forest," he said, and Harry was pleased to hear the note of panic in his voice. Hagrid's a good guy. I like Hagrid telling off Filch like that. "You are if you want to stay at Hogwarts," said Hagrid fiercely. "You've done wrong, and now you got to pay for it." "But this is servant stuff. It's not for students to do. I thought we'd be copying lines or something. If my father knew I was doing this, he'd tell you that's how it is at Hogwarts," Hagrid growled. "Copying lines. What good's that to anyone? You'll do something useful, or you'll get out. If you think your father rather you were expelled, then get back off to the castle and pack. Go on." "Yeah." And now Hagrid's telling off Malfoy. It's great. It's a great time. Malfoy didn't move. He looked at Hagrid furiously, but then dropped his gaze. "Right then," said Hagrid. "Now listen carefully, 'cause it's dangerous what we're going to do tonight, and I don't want no one taking risks. Follow me over here a moment." He led them to the very edge of the forest. Holding his lamp up high, he pointed down a narrow, winding earth track that disappeared into the thick, black trees. A light breeze lifted their hair as they looked into the forest. "Look there," said Hagrid. "See that stuff shining on the ground? Silvery stuff. That's unicorn blood. There's a unicorn in there been hurt badly by someone. This is the second time in a week. I found one dead last Wednesday. We're going to try and find the poor thing. We might have to put it out of its misery." "And what if whatever hurt the unicorn finds us first?" said Malfoy, unable to keep the fear out of his voice. "There's nothing that lives in the forest that'll hurt you if you're with me or Fang," said Hagrid, "and keep to the path. Right, now we're going to split into 2 parties and follow the trail in different directions. There's blood all over the place. It must have been staggering around since last night at least." "I want Fang," said Malfoy quickly, looking at Fang's long teeth. "All right, but I warn you, he's a coward," said Hagrid. "So me, Harry, and Hermione will go one way, and Draco, Neville, and Fang will go the other." That's a mistake. "Now, if any of us finds the unicorn, we'll send up green sparks, right? Get your wands out and practice now. That's it. And if anyone gets in trouble, send up red sparks, and we'll all come and find you. So be careful. Let's go." The forest was black and silent. A little way into it, they reached a fork in the earth path, and Harry, Hermione, and Hagrid took the left path, while Malfoy, Neville, and Fang took the right. They walked in silence, their eyes on the ground. Every now and then a ray of moonlight through the branches above lit a spot of silver-blue blood on the fallen trees. Harry saw that Hagrid looked very worried. "Could a werewolf be killing the unicorns?" Harry asked. "Unicorns are fast, aren't they?" "Not fast enough," said Hagrid. "It's not easy to catch a unicorn. They're powerful magic creatures. I never knew one to be hurt before." They walked past a mossy tree stump. Harry could hear running water. There must be a stream somewhere close by. There were still spots of unicorn blood here and there along the winding path. "You all right, Hermione?" Hagrid whispered. "Don't worry, it can't have gone far if it's this badly hurt, and then we'll be able to—" "Get behind that tree!" Hagrid seized Harry and Hermione and hoisted them off the path behind a towering oak. He pulled out an arrow and fitted it into his crossbow, raising it, ready to fire. The three of them listened. Something was slithering over dead leaves nearby. It sounded like a cloak trailing along the ground. Hagrid was squinting up the dark path, but after a few seconds, the sound faded away. I love that imagery. You can hear it when you read that. You can hear the slithering sound of fabric, like running smoothly over dead leaves. I knew it, he murmured. There's something in here that shouldn't be. A werewolf? Harry suggested. Get off about the werewolves. I don't even really think there are werewolves in this woods. Not this year. It wasn't no werewolf, and it wasn't no unicorn neither, said Hagrid grimly. Right. Follow me. Be careful now. They walked more slowly, ears straining for the faintest sound. Suddenly, in a clearing ahead, something definitely moved. Who's there? Hagrid called. Show yourself. I'm armed. And into the clearing came... Was it a man or a horse? To the waist a man, with red hair and beard, but below that was a horse's gleaming chestnut body with a long reddish tail. Harry and Hermione's jaws dropped. Oh, it's you, Ronan, said Hagrid in relief. How are you? He walked forward and shook the centaur's hand. Good evening to you, Hagrid, said Ronan. He had a deep, sorrowful voice. Were you going to shoot me? Can't be too careful, Ronan, said Hagrid, patting his crossbow. There's something bad loose in this forest. Is this Harry Potter and Hermione Granger, by the way? Students up at the school? And this is Ronan, you two. He's a centaur. We'd noticed, said Hermione faintly. Good evening, said Ronan. Students, are you? And do you learn much up at the school? A bit, said Hermione timidly. A bit. Well, that's something. Ronan sighed. He flung back his head and stared at the sky. Mars is bright tonight. Sorry. I just remember this being really funny when I was a kid. Yeah, said Hagrid, glancing up too. Listen, I'm glad we've run into you, Ronan, 'cause there's a unicorn been hurt. You seen anything? Ronan didn't answer immediately. He stared unblinkingly upward, then sighed again. Always the innocent are the first victims, he said. So it has been for ages past. So it is now. Centaurs, they study the stars and the future. That's actually not just a Harry Potter thing. That's like, I think that's in like their mythology. I think that's true in like Chronicles of Narnia as well. Always the innocent are the first victims. So like when Ronan talks, pay attention to what he's saying. Mars is bright tonight. Mars is the planet named after the war god. He's predicting the beginning of the Second War, is what he's doing, which will happen in 3 to 4 years. I think that's what he's predicting, anyway. Yeah, said Hagrid. But have you seen anything, Ronan? Anything unusual? Mars is bright tonight. Ronan repeated while Hagrid watched him impatiently. Unusually bright. Yeah, okay. That's not what we meant. Yeah, but I was meaning anything unusual a bit nearer home, said Hagrid. So you haven't noticed anything strange? Yet again, Ronan took a while to answer. At last he said, the forest hides many secrets. He's being like super vague. A movement in the trees behind Ronan made Hagrid raise his bow again, but it was only a second centaur, black-haired and bodied, and wilder looking than Ronan. Hello, Bane, said Hagrid. All right? Good evening, Hagrid. I hope you are well. Well enough. Look, I've just been asking Ronan. You see anything odd in here lately? Has a unicorn been injured? Would you know anything about it? Bane walked over to stand next to Ronan. He looked skyward. What's he gonna say? Any guesses? Mars is bright tonight. He said simply. We've heard, said Hagrid grumpily. Well, if either of you do see anything, let me know, won't you? We'll be off then. Ruddy stargazers. Harry and Hermione followed him out of the clearing, staring over their shoulders at Ronan and Bane until the trees blocked their view. Never, said Hagrid irritably. Try and get a straight answer out of a centaur. Ruddy stargazers. That's what I just said. Not interested in anything closer than the moon. Are there many of them in here? Asked Hermione. Oh, a fair few. Keep themselves to themselves, mostly. But they're good enough about turning up if ever I want a word. They're deep, mine, centaurs. They know things. Just don't let on much. Yeah, no, they're very knowledgeable. Do you think that was a centaur we heard earlier? Said Harry. Did that sound like hooves to you? Nah, if you ask me, that was what's been killing the unicorns. Never heard anything like it before. Oh, yeah. They walked on through the dense, dark trees. Harry kept looking nervously over his shoulder. He had the nasty feeling they were being watched. He was very glad they had Hagrid and his crossbow with them. They had just passed a bend in the path when Hermione grabbed Hagrid's arm. Hagrid, look! Red Spox! The others are in trouble! You two wait here, Hagrid shouted. Stay on the path. I'll come back for you. I wrote in the margin, just as Harry's glad Hagrid is with them, Hagrid leaves. Gosh darn it. They heard him crashing away through the undergrowth and stood looking at each other, very scared, until they couldn't hear anything but the rustling of leaves around them. You don't think they've been hurt, do you? Whispered Hermione. I don't care if Malfoy has, but if something's got Neville, it's our fault he's here in the first place. The minutes dragged by. Their ears seemed sharper than usual. Harry's seemed to be picking up every sigh of the wind, every cracking twig. What was going on? Where were the others? At last a great crunching noise announced Hagrid's return. Malfoy, Neville, and Fang were with him. Hagrid was fuming. Malfoy, it seemed, had sneaked up behind Neville and grabbed him as a joke. Neville had panicked and sent up the sparks. We'll be lucky to catch anything now, with the racket you two are making. Right, we're changing groups. Neville, you stay with me and Hermione. Harry, you go with Fang and this idiot. Tell it like it is, Hagrid. I'm sorry, Hagrid added in a whisper to Harry, but he'll have a harder time frightening you, and we've got to get this done. So Harry set off into the heart of the forest with Malfoy and Fang. They walked for nearly half an hour, deeper and deeper into the forest, until the path became almost impossible to follow because the trees were so thick. Harry thought the blood seemed to be getting thicker. There were splashes on the roots of a tree, as though the poor creature had been thrashing around in pain close by. Harry could see a clearing ahead through the tangled branches of an ancient oak. I put AF by that. Which is, it just made me think of Artemis Fowl as ancient oaks. That's a requirement for fairies to regain their powers in that book series, is they need to bury an acorn in the ground under an ancient oak tree by a river bend. And they're rare. And there's one of them. Well, it's not by a river bend, but it might still work. I think it works. I think the magical ritual works best when it's by the bend of a river. Anyway. Of course I would write that. Look, he murmured, holding out his arm to stop Malfoy. Something bright white was gleaming on the ground. They inched closer. It was the unicorn, all right, and it was dead. Harry had never seen anything so beautiful and sad. Its long, slender legs were stuck out at odd angles where it had fallen, and its mane was spread pearly white on the dark leaves. I wonder if this is what Ronan meant when he said the innocent are the first to die in any war. This might be what he meant, the unicorn. Harry had taken one step toward it when a slithering sound made him freeze where he stood. A brush on the edge of the clearing quivered. Then, out of the shadows, a hooded figure came crawling across the ground like some stalking beast. Harry, Malfoy, and Fang stood transfixed. The cloaked figure reached the unicorn, lowered its head over the wound in the animal's side, and began to drink its blood. Ah! Malfoy let out a terrible scream and bolted. So did Fang. The hooded figure raised its head and looked right at Harry. Unicorn blood was dribbling down its front. It got to its feet and came swiftly toward Harry. He couldn't move for fear. Then a pain like he'd never felt before pierced his head. It was as though his scar was on fire. Half blinded, he staggered backward. He heard hooves behind him, galloping, and something jumped clear over Harry, charging at the figure. The pain in Harry's head was so bad he fell to his knees. It took a minute or two to pass. When he looked up, the figure had gone. A centaur was standing over him. Not Ronan or Bane. This one looked younger. He had white blonde hair and a palomino body. "Are you all right?" said the centaur, pulling Harry to his feet. "Yes, thank you." "What was that?" The centaur didn't answer. He had astonishingly blue eyes, like pale sapphires. He looked carefully at Harry, his eyes lingering on the scar that stood out livid on Harry's forehead. "You are the Potter boy," he said. "You had better get back to Hagrid. The forest is not safe at this time, especially for you. Can you ride? It will be quicker this way." "My name is Firenze," he added as he lowered himself onto his front legs so that Harry could clamber onto his back. Sorry, I'm just thinking about a Harry Potter musical. In the centaur tongue, it means friend. There was a sudden sound of more galloping from the other side of the clearing. Ronan and Bane came bursting through the trees, their flanks heaving and sweaty. "Firenze!" Bane thundered. "What are you doing? You have a human on your back. Have you no shame? Are you a common mule?" "Do you realize who this is?" said Firenze. "This is Potter, the Potter boy. The quicker he leaves this forest, the better." "What have you been telling him?" growled Bane. "Remember, Firenze, we are sworn not to set ourselves against the heavens. Have we not read what is to come in the movements of the planets?" What is to come? They know. That's crazy to me. They know. And they don't like that Firenze is trying to influence events. Ronan pawed the ground nervously. "I'm sure Firenze thought he was acting for the best," he said in his gloomy voice. Bane kicked his back legs in anger. "For the best? What is that to do with us? Centaurs are concerned with what has been foretold. It is not our business to run around like donkeys after stray humans in our forest." Firenze suddenly reared on his hind legs in anger, so that Harry had to grab his shoulders to stay on. "Do you not see that unicorn?" Firenze bellowed at Bane. "Do you not understand why it was killed? Or have the planets not let you in on that secret? I set myself against what is lurking in this forest, Bane. Yes, with humans alongside me, if I must." That is so noble of him. That is awesome. Firenze is way cooler than I realized. He's way cooler than I remember. I like that. I appreciate that. And Firenze whisked around, with Harry clutching on as best he could. They plunged off into the trees, leaving Ronan and Bane behind them. Sometimes we go against what society expects of us to do the right thing. Sometimes we go against our culture to do the right thing. Harry didn't have a clue what was going on. Yeah. Why's Bane so angry? He asked. What was that thing you saved me from, anyway? Firenze slowed to a walk, warned Harry to keep his head bowed in case of low-hanging branches, but did not answer Harry's question. They made their way through the trees in silence for so long that Harry thought Firenze didn't want to talk to him anymore. They were passing through a particularly dense patch of trees, however, when Firenze suddenly stopped. Harry Potter, do you know what unicorn blood is used for? No, said Harry, startled by the odd question. We've only used the horn and tail hair in potions. That is because it is a monstrous thing to slay a unicorn, said Firenze. Only one who has nothing to lose and everything to gain would commit such a crime. The blood of a unicorn will keep you alive even if you are an inch from death, but at a terrible price. You have slain something pure and defenseless to save yourself, and you will have but a half-life, a cursed life, from the moment the blood touches your lips. Harry stared at the back of Firenze's head, which was dappled silver in the moonlight. But who'd be that desperate? He wondered aloud. If you're going to be cursed forever, death's better, isn't it? Not everybody thinks that way, Harry. Unfortunately. Death isn't the beginning for some people. There are things worse than death. But not everyone believes that. It is, Firenze agreed. Unless all you need is to stay alive long enough to drink something else. Something that will bring you back to full strength and power. Something that will mean you can never die. Mr. Potter, do you know what is hidden in the school at this very moment? How does he know? Did the stars tell him that? I'm curious how he knows. Hagrid might have told him, let's be honest. Him and Hagrid were probably having a drink and Hagrid mentioned it. The Sorcerer's Stone. Of course. The elixir of life. But I don't understand who... Can you think of nobody who has waited many years to return to power, who has clung to life, awaiting their chance? It was as though an iron fist had clenched suddenly around Harry's heart. Over the rustling of the trees, he seemed to hear once more what Hagrid had told him on the night they had met. Some say he died. Codswallop, in my opinion. Dunno if he had enough human left in him to die. Do you mean, Harry choked, that was full... Harry! Harry, are you all right? Hermione was running toward them down the path, Hagrid puffing along behind her. I'm fine, said Harry, hardly knowing what he was saying. The unicorn's dead, Hagrid. It's in that clearing back there. This is where I leave you, Firenze murmured as Hagrid hurried off to examine the unicorn. You are safe now. Harry slid off his back. Good luck, Harry Potter, said Firenze. The planets have been read wrongly before now, even by centaurs. I hope this is one of those times. They already know, don't they? He turned and cantered back into the depths of the forest, leaving Harry shivering behind him. Oh, let me read that differently. He turned and cantered back into the depths of the forest, leaving Harry shivering behind him. And then, Ron had fallen asleep in the dark common room, waiting for them to return. He shouted something about Quidditch fouls, when Harry roughly shook him awake. In a matter of seconds, though, he was wide-eyed as Harry began to tell him and Hermione what had happened in the forest. Harry couldn't sit down. He paced up and down in front of the fire. He was still shaking. Snape wants the stone for Voldemort, and Voldemort's waiting in the forest. And all this time we thought Snape just wanted to get rich. Stop saying the name, said Ron in a terrified whisper, as if he thought Voldemort could hear them. Harry wasn't listening. Ferenz saved me, but he shouldn't have done so. Bane was furious. He was talking about interfering with what the planets say is going to happen. They must show that Voldemort's coming back. Bane thinks Ferenz should have let Voldemort kill me. I suppose that's written in the stars as well. Mm-hmm. Bingo! Deathly Hallows. There we go. J.K. Rowling spoiling everything. Will you stop saying the name? Ron hissed. So all I've got to wait for now is Snape to steal the stone, Harry went on feverishly. Then Voldemort will be able to come and finish me off. Well, I suppose Bane will be happy. Hermione looked very frightened, but she had a word of comfort. Harry, everyone says Dumbledore's the only one you know who was ever afraid of. With Dumbledore around, you know who won't touch you. Anyway, who says the centaurs are right? It sounds like fortune-telling to me, and Professor McGonagall says that's a very imprecise branch of magic. It is. So, I feel like that's foreshadowing to Dumbledore's death in Half-Blood Prince. Because I always thought, before Half-Blood Prince came out, I always remembered that line. So, Voldemort will never really succeed until Dumbledore's dead. And so then I just thought, that would be the twist. That would be the ending, wouldn't it? That would be the twist ending, wouldn't it? When Dumbledore's gone, Voldemort can be strong. And I realized Dumbledore's death would come eventually. I didn't really dwell on the thought, but I had some sort of inkling that Dumbledore had to die eventually in the series for Voldemort to reach his full power. And we also see here that Hermione is already showing signs of... Hermione has weaknesses, as I said before, and I didn't mention this, but one of her weaknesses is fortune-telling. She is, which, let's be honest, it's a lot of people's weaknesses. Not very many people are actually good at it. But she's already dismissing it as not her strong suit and not something she's interested in. She's not interested in fortune-telling or any of that sort of magic, which will be more prominent when we get to Prisoner of Azkaban. The sky turned light before they stopped talking. They went to bed exhausted, their throats sore, but the night's surprises weren't over. When Harry pulled back his sheets, he found his invisibility cloak folded neatly underneath them. There was a note pinned to it, just in case. Dumbledore, what are you doing? It's like Dumbledore wants Harry to go on adventures. What am I saying? I'm all talking about earlier how if Harry just told Dumbledore would have done something. Maybe not. Maybe Dumbledore would be like, you figure it out, Harry. I think Dumbledore, now that I think about it, that's exactly what happens. Dumbledore sits back and lets Harry do it. Because he's crazy. I don't know. Dumbledore in Order of the Phoenix tells Harry, I watched you. I watched you do all these things. Dumbledore knows what's going on. He wants Harry to figure it all out. He wants Harry to do all this. Because he's a nut job. I don't know. Reasonable adults don't act like that. I don't know. Maybe Dumbledore wouldn't have done anything. Dumbledore does leave the school. But then he comes back realizing that he might have been sent away from Hogwarts on purpose. He receives a letter from the Minister of Magic. And he leaves the school and then realizes that he shouldn't have left and comes back. But maybe he left on purpose because he wanted Harry to figure it out himself. That would be so like him. But that's the end of chapter 15. It's a long one. But now we are going to take a 15-minute break. So yeah, now's a good time to get up and stretch, get a drink, get a snack, use the restroom, do what you have to do, and I will see you in 15 minutes. No? There you go. Okay, sorry. My mouse started acting really wonky and I couldn't get it to function. Hi, welcome back. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, welcome back. And now we will read Harry Potter and Sorcerer's Stone, Chapter 16. Now things get really interesting. Through the Trapdoor. Here, I'm going to do something real quick. Real quick. Oh. Where? Help. Nope. No. There we go. Alright. Good stuff, good stuff. Okay, hi. Hi. Let's do this. Alright. In years to come, Harry would never quite remember how he had managed to get through his exams when he half expected Voldemort to come bursting through the door at any moment. Yet the days crept by. Oh, hi Julia. That's good. Yeah. Okay, good. Glad to see you. Yet the days crept by, and there could be no doubt that Fluffy was still alive and well behind the locked door. It was sweltering hot, especially in the large classroom where they did their written papers. They had been given special new quills for the exams, which had been bewitched with an anti-cheating spell. Again, a reference to my very favorite deleted scene from the first movie. They had practical exams as well. Professor Flitwick called them one by one into his class to see if they could make a pineapple tap dance across a desk. 'Cause that's useful. Professor McGonagall watched them turn a mouse into a snuff box. Again, useful. Points were given for how pretty the snuff box was, but taken away if it had whiskers. Okay. Snape made them all nervous, breathing down their necks while they tried to remember how to make a forgetfulness potion. Again, the deleted scene. Harry did the best he could, trying to ignore the stabbing pains in his forehead, which had been bothering him ever since his trip into the forest. Neville thought Harry had a bad case of exam nerves, because Harry couldn't sleep, but the truth was that Harry kept being woken by his old nightmare, except that it was now worse than ever because there was a hooded figure dripping blood in it. Again, Harry having dreams. That's a significant part of his connection with Voldemort, is having dreams. I don't know if this is actually something that he's seeing through Voldemort, but his dreams being connected with Voldemort the connection still influences his dreams, even if the dreams, what he's dreaming, isn't really happening. And the scar burning is also an indication that things are getting heated, that Voldemort is up to something, and that he is close by. Maybe it was because they hadn't seen what Harry had seen in the forest, or because they didn't have scars burning on their foreheads, but Ron and Hermione didn't seem as worried about the stone as Harry. The idea of Voldemort certainly scared them, but he didn't keep visiting them in dreams, and they were so busy with their studying, they didn't have much time to fret about what Snape or anyone else might be up to. That's another thing. I mentioned earlier that how Harry has this adventure gene, how he wants to figure out the problem. He wants to be the one to solve the problem. He wants to do adventurous things, and how Ron and Hermione are like that too, and that they're with him, and they're just as adventurous as he is. But here you have J.K. Rowling showing the difference between Harry and Ron, Ron and Hermione. He's still set apart. He's still alone in terms of experience. Of course, Ron and Hermione aren't that worried because Voldemort isn't really their enemy. Not directly in the same way that he's Harry's enemy. And so Harry is involved more personally involved in what Voldemort is up to than Hermione and Ron, and that's actually something that he gets quite upset about later. And then he tells them often in Order of the Phoenix. Their very last exam was History of Magic. 1 hour of answering questions about batty old wizards who'd invented self-stirring cauldrons, and they'd be free. Free for a whole wonderful week until their exam results came back. Do they continue having classes after the exams are over? I imagine they do. That's the way it works in Muggle school, right? Like, even after the exams, we still had classes, didn't we? I mean, we did, but it wasn't, like, super involved. It was just kind of chill, wasn't it? I don't remember. School was a long time ago for me. I'm almost 30 years old. It was forever ago. When the ghost of Professor Binns told them to put down their quills and roll up their parchment, Harry couldn't help cheering with the rest. That was far easier than I thought it would be, said Hermione as they joined the crowds flocking out onto the sunny grounds. I needn't have learned about the 1637 Werewolf Code of Conduct or the uprising of Elfric the Eager. Hermione always liked to go through their exam papers afterward, but Ron said this made him feel ill, so they wandered down to the lake and flopped under a tree. This is a tree that they will frequent throughout the series. I've written many a fan fiction where events happen around this tree. The Weasley twins and Lee Jordan were tickling the tentacles of a giant squid, which was basking in the warm shallows. And there's the infamous giant squid. Never had his moment in the movies, unfortunately. Budget cuts, I'm sure. No more studying, Ron sighed happily, stretching out on the grass. You could look more cheerful, Harry. We've got a week before we find out how badly we've done. There's no need to worry yet. Harry was rubbing his forehead. I wish I knew what this means, he burst out angrily. My scar keeps hurting. It's happened before, but never as often as this. You don't want to know what it means, Harry. You really don't. I mean, like, literally, it means Voldemort is close by, but, like, the origin of what it really means, you don't want to know. You don't want to know. Not yet. You're too young for that. Too young and innocent. No thanks. Go to Madame Pomfrey, Hermione suggested. What would she do? Would she even know what to do? I'm not ill, said Harry. I think it's a warning. It means danger's coming. His Potter sense is tingling. I wrote that? I didn't write that anywhere. That's hilarious. I gotta write that down. His Potter sense is tingling. Alright. Ron couldn't get worked up. It was too hot. Harry, relax. Hermione's right. The stone's safe as long as Dumbledore's around. Anyway, we've never had any proof Snape found out how to get past Fluffy. He nearly had his leg ripped off once. He's not going to try it again in a hurry. And Neville will play Quidditch for England before Hagrid lets Dumbledore down. Yeah. Hagrid doesn't do it on purpose, to be fair, but he still lets Dumbledore down. Harry nodded, but he couldn't shake off a lurking feeling that there was something he'd forgotten to do. Something important. When he tried to explain this, Hermione said, That's just the exams. I woke up last night and was halfway through my transfiguration notes before I remembered we'd done that one. Harry was quite sure the unsettled feeling didn't have anything to do with work, though. He watched an owl flutter toward the school across the bright blue sky, a note clamped in its mouth. That's important. An owl fluttered toward the school across the bright there's an owl with a note clamped in its mouth, flying towards the tower. That's an important note. That's Dumbledore's note. That's a note from the Minister of Magic. Who knows if it was actually from the Minister of Magic? It could have been a ruse. But it's a note telling Dumbledore to go to the Ministry of Magic right away, so that Dumbledore would be out of the way. Hagrid was the only one who ever sent him letters. Hagrid would never betray Dumbledore. Hagrid would never tell anyone how to get past Fluffy. Never. But... Harry suddenly jumped to his feet. Now, if you know Harry as well as I do, you know Harry's not this smart. I have a hard time believing that Harry would have come to this conclusion on his own. I don't know. I call shenanigans. This is the boy that didn't realize that Godric Gryffindor was born and from Godric's Hollow. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. He's not the brightest. I have a hard time believing that he came to this conclusion on his own, but that's what J.K. Rowling said happened, so I don't know. I probably would have written this differently. Where are you going? Said Ron sleepily. I've just thought of something, said Harry. He had turned white. We've got to go and see Hagrid, now. Why? Panted Hermione, hurrying to keep up. Don't you think it's a bit odd, said Harry, scrambling up the grassy slope, that what Hagrid wants more than anything else is a dragon, and a stranger turns up who just happens to have an egg in his pocket? How many people wander around with dragon eggs if it's against wizard law? Lucky they found Hagrid, don't you think? Why didn't I see it before? What are you talking about? Said Ron, but Harry, sprinting across the grounds toward the forest, didn't answer. Hagrid was sitting in an armchair outside his house. His trousers and sleeves were rolled up, and he was shelling peas into a large bowl. Hello, he said, smiling. Finished your exams? Got time for a drink? Yes, please, said Ron, but Harry cut off. No, Ron, it's now time for snacking. No, we're in a hurry, Hagrid. I've got to ask you something. You know that night you won Norbert? What did the stranger you were playing cards with look like? Dunno, said Hagrid casually. He wouldn't take his cloak off. He saw 3 of them look stunned and raised his eyebrows. It's not that unusual. You get a lot of funny folk in the Hog's Head. That's the pub down in the village. Might have been a dragon dealer, mightn't he? I never saw his face. He kept his hood up. So dragon dealing is a thing, which I'm not surprised. So he could have been. Harry sank down next to the bowl of peas. What did you talk to him about, Hagrid? Did you mention Hogwarts at all? Might have come up, said Hagrid, frowning as he tried to remember. Yeah. He asked what I did, and I told him I was a gamekeeper here. He asked a bit about the sort of creatures I look after, so I told him. And I said what I'd always really wanted was a dragon. And then I can't remember too well, 'cause he kept buying me drinks. Let's see. Yeah. Then he said he had the dragon egg and we could play cards for it if I wanted. But he had to be sure I could handle it. He didn't want it to go to any old home. So I told him after Fluffy, a dragon would be easy. And did he seem interested in Fluffy? Harry asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Well, yeah. How many 3-headed dogs do you meet, even around Hogwarts? So I told him Fluffy's a piece of cake if you know how to calm him down. Just play him a bit of music and he'll go straight off to sleep. Hagrid suddenly looked horrified. I shouldn't have told you that, he blurted out. Forget I said it. Hey, where are you going? He's worried about telling them, not worried that he told this stranger. I guess he's not in on the fact that this stranger might be, Snape or Quirrell or whoever. Yeah, that's a problem. Harry, Ron, and Hermione didn't speak to each other at all until they came to a halt in the entrance hall, which seemed very cold and gloomy after the grounds. We've got to go to Dumbledore, said Harry. Hagrid told that stranger how to get past Fluffy, and it was either Snape or Voldemort under that cloak. It must have been easy, once he got Hagrid drunk. I just hope Dumbledore believes us. Firenze might back us up if Bane doesn't stop him. Where's Dumbledore's office? Why would Firenze have anything to say about it? I guess he could talk about Voldemort in the forest, I guess. That was an odd thing to say, I feel like. They looked around, as if hoping to see a sign pointing them in the right direction. They had never been told where Dumbledore lived, nor did they know anyone who had been sent to see him. "We'll just have to," Harry began, but a voice suddenly rang across the hall. "What are you three doing inside?" Oh, nope, it's not Snape. Sorry, my bookmark is covering the next sentence, and I assumed it would be just like the movie, but no, this is Professor McGonagall. Oh, let me change my voice. Professor McGonagall, what deep voice you have. What are you three doing inside? It was Professor McGonagall carrying a large pile of books. "We want to see Professor Dumbledore," said Hermione, rather bravely. Harry and Ron thought. It's not that brave, is it? "See Professor Dumbledore?" Professor McGonagall repeated, as though this was a very fishy thing to want to do. "Why?" Harry swallowed. Now what? "It's sort of secret." I wouldn't say that. I don't know. Anyway. "It's sort of secret," he said, but he wished at once he hadn't, because Professor McGonagall's nostrils flared. "Professor Dumbledore left 10 minutes ago," she said coldly. "He received an urgent hour from the Ministry of Magic and flew off for London at once. See? He's gone." "He's gone?" said Harry frantically. "Now?" "Professor Dumbledore is a very great wizard, Potter. He has many demands on his time." "But this is important. Something you have to say is more important than the Ministry of Magic, Potter?" "Look," said Harry, throwing caution to the winds. "Professor, it's about the Sorcerer's Stone." Whatever Professor McGonagall had expected, it wasn't that. The books she was carrying tumbled out of her arms, but she didn't pick them up. "How do you know?" she spluttered. "Professor, I know that someone's going to try and steal the stone. I've got to talk to Professor Dumbledore." She eyed him with a mixture of shock and suspicion. "Professor Dumbledore will be back tomorrow," she said finally. "I don't know how you found out about the stone, but rest assured no one can possibly steal it. It's too well protected." "But Professor Potter, I know what I'm talking about," she said shortly. She bent down and gathered up the fallen books. "I suggest you all go back outside and enjoy the sunshine." But they didn't. "It's tonight," said Harry, once he was sure Professor McGonagall was out of earshot. "Snape's going to the Trapdoor tonight. He's found out everything he needs, and now he's got Dumbledore out of the way. He sent that note. I bet the Ministry of Magic will get a real shock when Dumbledore turns up." "But what can we—" Hermione gasped. Harry and Ron wheeled around. And there's Snape. Okay, this is the part I thought that I was reading. Snape was standing there. "Good afternoon," he said smoothly. They stared at him. "You shouldn't be inside on a day like this," he said with an odd, twisted smile. Harry began, without any idea what he was going to say. "You want to be more careful," said Snape. "Hanging around like this, people will think you're up to something. And Gryffindor really can't afford to lose any more points, can it?" Harry flushed. They turned to go outside, but Snape called them back. "Be warned, Potter. Any more nighttime wanderings, and I will personally make sure you are expelled. Good day to you." He strode off in the direction of the staff room. Out on the stone steps, Harry turned to the others. "Right, here's what we've got to do," he whispered urgently. "One of us has got to keep an eye on Snape. Wait outside the staff room and follow him if he leaves it. Hermione, you'd better do that." "Why me?" "It's obvious," said Ron. "You can pretend to be waiting for Professor Flitwick, you know." He put on a high voice. "Oh, Professor Flitwick, I'm so worried. I think I got question 14B wrong." Ron's such a jerk. "Oh, shut up," said Hermione, but she agreed to go and watch out for Snape. I want to mention something. One of those cases where I think the movie does it better than the book, that scene with Snape and the trio, there is a moment where, while Snape's talking, Harry looks at him and he has this fierce look of, I know what you're up to, and I'm not afraid of you. I'm going to stop you. That sort of look, and that's something you don't get in this book. It's great. It's a great moment between Harry and Snape that you miss, in the book. And we better stay outside the third floor corridor, Harry told Ron. Come on. But that part of the plan didn't work. No sooner had they reached the door separating Fluffy from the rest of the school than Professor McGonagall turned up again, and this time she lost her temper. I suppose you think you're harder to get past than a pack of enchantments, she stormed. Enough of this nonsense. If I hear you've come around near here again, I'll take another 50 points from Gryffindor. Yes, Weasley, from my own house. She would be a good teacher if she didn't. Okay, guess we're going tonight then. Let's break more rules. Harry and Ron went back to the common room. Harry just said, at least Hermione's on Snape's tail, when the portrait of the fat lady swung open and Hermione came in. I'm sorry, Harry, she wailed. Snape came out and asked me what I was doing, so I said I was waiting for Flitwick, and Snape went to get him. And I've only just got away. I don't know where Snape went. Well, that's it then, isn't it? Harry said. The other two stared at him. He was pale, and his eyes were glittering. I love this. This is Harry's moment here. I'm going out of here tonight, and I'm going to try and get the stone first. That's my boy. That's what I wrote there. You're mad, said Ron. You can't, said Hermione. After what McGonagall and Snape have said, you'll be expelled. So what? Harry shouted. Don't you understand? If Snape gets hold of the stone, Voldemort's coming back. Haven't you heard what it was like when he was trying to take over? There won't be any Hogwarts to get expelled from. He'll flatten it, or turn it into a school for the dark arts. Losing points doesn't matter anymore. Can't you see? Do you think he'll leave you and your families alone if Gryffindor wins the House Cup? If I get caught before I can get to the stone, well, I'll have to go back to the Dursleys and wait for Voldemort to find me there. It's only dying a bit later than I would have, because I'm never going to the dark side. I'm going through that trapdoor tonight, and nothing you two say is going to stop me. Voldemort killed my parents, remember? Yeah, and that's a defining moment for Harry. Like, Harry's always been kind. He's always been, a good kid. But this is the moment where he, draws a line in the sand and says, this is who I am. I do the right thing, even when it's hard. I do the right thing, even if it costs me. And that's, I don't know about you, but that's who I want to be. And then, this is also something, that last sentence there, Voldemort killed my parents, remember? That's actually something Dumbledore talks about in Half-Blood Prince. Goes on a really long spiel about it that Harry has a hard time keeping up with. He's brave and kind, not bright, remember? And Dumbledore explains why Harry is so invested in Voldemort, and it's not strictly because Voldemort is out to get Harry, though that's certainly part of it. It's also because Voldemort started it. Voldemort created his worst enemy by creating his worst enemy, if that makes sense. Harry would have never become the chosen one. He would have never decided to defeat Voldemort, to actively fight against him, if Voldemort hadn't come after him and killed his parents in the first place. And so that's, Harry is making that point right there. I'm going after Voldemort because he killed my parents, remember? And that's a little nod to it. He glared at them. He expects them to fight him. He expects them to turn around and walk away. But as much of a defining moment for Harry this is, it's also a defining moment for his friends. You're right, Harry, said Hermione in a small voice. I'll use the invisibility cloak, said Harry. It's just lucky I got it back. But will it cover all three of us, said Ron. All three of us? Harry? And this is the first time where Harry's like, wait a minute. I'm not doing this alone? No, you idiot. No, How many times do we have to told you? We're in this together. How many times Ron and Hermione have to tell him, no, we're doing this together. That's how this works. That's how we do this. And so Harry's, for the very first time, surprised that it's not all about him. Oh, come off it. You don't think we'd let you go alone? Of course not, said Hermione briskly. How do you think you'd get to the stone without us? I'd better go and look through my books. There might be something useful. See, they're all for it. They want to help. They're with you, Harry. Immediately. All the way. But if we get caught, you two will be expelled too. Not if I can help it, said Hermione grimly. Flitwick told me, in secret, that I got 112% on his exam. They're not throwing me out after that. Hermione's awesome. After dinner, the three of them sat nervously apart in the common room. Nobody bothered them. None of the Gryffindors had anything to say to Harry anymore, after all. That was the first night he hadn't been upset by it. Hermione was skimming through all her notes, hoping to come across one of the enchantments they were about to try to break. Harry and Ron didn't talk much. Both of them were thinking about what they were about to do. What? I wrote something here, and I don't understand why I wrote that. It looks like I said weak scent? What? What was I talking about? What? Both of them were thinking about what they were about to do. I have no idea what that means. I don't get that. No, I'm sorry, past Erica. I don't understand you. Slowly the room emptied as people drifted off to bed. Better get the cloak, Ron muttered, as Lee Jordan finally left, stretching and yawning. Harry ran upstairs to their dark dormitory. He pulled out the cloak, then his eyes fell on the flute Hagrid had given him for Christmas. He pocketed it to use on Fluffy. He didn't feel much like singing. I love it when you sing. That's a reference to Daniel Radcliffe, not Harry Potter, though. No, I wrote. He ran back down to the common room. We'd better put the cloak on here, and make sure it covers all three of us. If Filch spots one of our feet wandering along on its own... What are you doing? Said a voice from the corner of the room. Neville appeared from behind an armchair, clutching Trevor the Toad, who looked as though he'd been making another bid for freedom. So this part is actually more significant than the movie, because in the book, Neville got in trouble and humiliated because Harry and Hermione were wandering outside, were wandering late at night. In the movie, that didn't happen to Neville, so him stopping them wasn't, why did it matter so much that he was trying to stop them? But in the book, it's more significant, obviously, because he doesn't want what happened the first time to happen again. Nothing, Neville, nothing, said Harry hurriedly, putting the cloak behind his back. Neville stared at their guilty faces. You're going out again, he said. No, said Hermione. No, we're not. Why don't you go to bed, Neville? Harry looked at the grandfather clock by the door. They couldn't afford to waste any more time. Snape might even now be playing Fluffy to sleep. You can't go out, said Neville. You'll be caught again. Gryffindor will be in even more trouble. You don't understand, said Harry. This is important. But Neville was clearly steeling himself to do something desperate. Why don't they just explain it to him? I know they don't have time. They should have told him what really happened the first time. That's what they should have done. So that maybe he could trust them. Be like, we're doing something important. I won't let you do it, he said, hurrying to stand in front of the portrait hole. I'll fight you. Neville, Ron exploded. Get away from that hole and don't be an idiot. Don't you call me an idiot, said Neville. I don't think you should be breaking any more rules. And you were the one who told me to stand up to people. Yes, but not to us, said Ron in exasperation. Neville, you don't know what you're doing. He took a step forward, and Neville dropped Trevor the Toad, who leapt out of sight. Go on, then. Try and hit me, said Neville, raising his fists. I'm ready. Harry turned to Hermione. Take care of him. Do something, he said desperately. They expect Hermione to do something. What is this? Hermione stepped forward. Neville, she said, I'm really, really sorry about this. She raised her wand. Petrificus totalis, she cried, pointing it at Neville. Neville's arms snapped to his sides. His legs sprang together. His whole body rigid, he swayed where he stood and then fell flat on his face, stiff as a board. Hermione ran to turn him over. Petrificus totalis. That's probably Latin for totally petrified, if I had to guess. Hermione ran to turn him over. Neville's jaws were jammed together so he couldn't speak. Only his eyes were moving, looking at them in horror. What have you done to him? Harry whispered. It's the full body bind, said Hermione miserably. Oh, Neville, I'm so sorry. We had to, Neville. No time to explain, said Harry. You'll understand later, Neville, said Ron as they stepped over him and pulled on the invisibility cloak. But leaving Neville lying motionless on the floor didn't feel like a very good omen. In their nervous state, every statue's shadow looked like Filch. Every distant breath of wind sounded like Peeves swooping down on them. At the foot of the first set of stairs, they spotted Mrs. Norris skulking near the top. Oh, let's kick her, just this once, Ron whispered in Harry's ear, but Harry shook his head, and they climbed carefully around her. Mrs. Norris turned her lamp-like eyes on them, but didn't do anything. They didn't meet anyone else until they reached the staircase up to the 3rd floor. Peeves was bobbing halfway up, loosening the carpet so that people would trip. Who's there? He said suddenly as they climbed toward him. He narrowed his wicked black eyes. No, you're there, even if I can't see you. Are you Ghoulie, or Ghosty, or wee student beastie? He rose up in the air and floated there, squinting at them. Should call Filch, I should, if someone's a creeping around unseen. Harry had a sudden idea. Peeves, he said in a hoarse whisper. The Bloody Baron has his own reasons for being invisible. Peeves almost fell out of the air in shock. He caught himself in time and hovered about a foot off the stairs. So sorry, your bloodiness, Mr. Baron, sir, he said greasily. My mistake. I didn't see you. Of course I didn't. You're invisible. Forgive old Peevesy's little joke, sir. I have business here, Peeves, croaked Harry. Stay away from this place tonight. I will, sir. I most certainly will, said Peeves, rising up in the air again. Hope your business goes well, Baron. I'll not bother you. And he scooted off. That was brilliant, Harry, whispered Ron. It was kind of brilliant of him. It's kind of too brilliant, if I'm honest. And interesting, and would have been kind of cool if it was in the movie. A few seconds later, they were there, outside the 3rd floor corridor, and the door was already ajar. I thought it was a door. That's such a weird word, ajar. It's not a jar, it's a door, silly. Well, there you are, Harry said quietly. Snape's already got past Fluffy. Seeing the open door somehow seemed to impress upon all 3 of them what was facing them. Underneath the cloak, Harry turned to the other 2. If you want to go back, I won't blame you, he said. You can take the cloak. I won't need it now. Don't be stupid, said Ron. We're coming, said Hermione. Harry pushed the door open. As the door creaked, low, rumbling growls met their ears. All 3 of the dogs' noses sniffed madly in their direction, even though it couldn't see them. What's that at its feet? Hermione whispered. Looks like a hop, said Ron. Snape must have left it there. It must wake up the moment you stop playing, said Harry. Well, here goes. He put Hagrid's flute to his lips and blew. It wasn't really a tune, but from the first note the beast's eyes began to droop. Harry hardly drew breath. Slowly the dog's growls ceased. It tottered on its paws and fell to its knees. Then it slumped to the ground, fast asleep. "Keep playing," Ron warned Harry as they slipped out of the cloak and crept toward the trapdoor. They could feel the dog's hot, smelly breath as they approached the giants' heads. "I think we'll be able to pull the door open," said Ron, peering over the dog's back. "Want to go first, Hermione?" "No, I don't." "All right." Ron gritted his teeth and stepped carefully over to the dog's legs. He bent and pulled the ring of the trapdoor, which swung up and open. "What can you see?" Hermione said anxiously. "Nothing. Just black. There's no way of climbing down. We'll just have to drop." Harry, who was still playing the flute, waved at Ron to get his attention and pointed at himself. "You want to go first? Are you sure?" Harry's nuts. I don't understand him. I don't. "Oh," said Ron. "I don't know how deep this goes. Give the flute to Hermione so she can keep him asleep." Ew. It's gross. Ew. I mean, I wouldn't mind having Harry's germs, but ew. Harry handed the flute over. In the few seconds' silence, the dog growled and twitched, but the moment Hermione began to play, it fell back into its deep sleep. Harry climbed over it and looked down through the trapdoor. There was no sign of the bottom. He lowered himself through the hole until he was hanging on by his fingertips. Then he looked up at Ron and said, "If anything happens to me, don't follow. Go straight to the Owlery and send Hedwig to Dumbledore, right?" "Right," said Ron. "See you in a minute, I hope." And Harry let go. Cold, damp air rushed past him as he fell down, 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 and straight up broke his legs. It doesn't say that. It just says down, 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 and flump. With a funny, muffled sort of thump, he landed on something soft. He sat up and felt around, his eyes not used to the gloom. It felt as though he was sitting on some sort of plant. "It's okay," he called up to the light the size of a postage stamp. That's a really cool imagery. Like, that's how far away the opening to the trapdoor is. It's the size of a postage stamp. That's a really good way of describing it. Which was the open trapdoor. "It's a soft landing. You can jump." Ron followed right away. He landed, sprawled next to Harry. "What's this stuff?" were his first words. "Dunno. Some sort of plant thing. I suppose it's here to break the fall. Come on, Hermione." The distant music stopped. There was a loud bark from the dog, but Hermione had already jumped. She landed on Harry's other side. How did they not, land on top of each other? Maybe they moved out of the way. It just doesn't say. Unless it does say. He sat up, felt around. Yeah, maybe. He landed, sprawled next to Harry. Maybe he moved out of the way, assuming what I did, that they would fall on top of each other. "It must be miles under the school," she said. "Lucky there's plant things here, really," said Ron. "Lucky?" shrieked Hermione. "Look at you both!" She leapt up and struggled toward a damp wall. She had to struggle because the moment she had landed, the plant had started to twist snake-like tendrils around her ankles. How can they see? Isn't it dark? As for Harry and Ron, their legs had already been bound tightly in long creepers without their noticing. Hermione had managed to free herself before the plant got a firm grip on her. Now she watched in horror as the two boys fought to pull the plant off them, but the more they strained against it, the tighter and faster the plant wound around them. "Stop moving," Hermione ordered them. "I know what this is. It's Devil's Snare." "Oh, I'm so glad we know what it's called. That's a great help," snarled Ron, leaning back, trying to stop the plant from curling around his neck. "Shut up, I'm trying to remember how to kill it," said Hermione. "Well, hurry up, I can't breathe," Harry gasped, wrestling with it as it curled around his chest. "Devil's Snare, Devil's Snare. What did Professor Sprout say? What did Professor Sprout say? It likes the dark and the damp." "So light a fire," Harry choked. "Yes, of course, but there's no wood." Hermione cried, wringing her hands. "Have you gone mad?" Ron bellowed. "Are you a witch or not?" Oh, right. Oh, that's a reference. That's a reference to Deathly Hallows. Deathly Hallows. Isn't that exact moment happens in Deathly Hallows, but reversed. And I can't remember what moment that was. I can't remember. That I distinctly remember. What was it? Ron and Hermione are in a pickle of some kind in Deathly Hallows, and Ron is like, "I can't do it." And then Hermione's like, "Are you a wizard or not?" I can't remember what moment that was. If any of you can remember, there is a moment in the book where this exact thing happens, but it's reversed, I'm pretty sure. I just made a note of it and just put Deathly Hallows, but I didn't mention what scene that was. Are you a wizard or not? I don't remember. I don't know. I wonder if there's a way to look it up. I don't know. Need a wizard Google. Oh, right, said Hermione, and she whipped out her wand, waved it, muttered something, and sent a jet of the same bluebell flames she had used on Snape at the plant. In a matter of seconds, the two boys felt it loosening its grip as it cringed away from the light and warmth. Wriggling and flailing, it unraveled itself from their bodies, and they were able to pull free. I think that was done a little better in the movie. Just a little more fun and dramatic, with some comedic relief. "Lucky you pay attention in herbology, Hermione," said Harry, as he joined her by the wall, wiping sweat off his face. "Yeah," said Ron, "and lucky Harry doesn't lose his head in a crisis. There's no wood, honestly." Yeah. Now I think about it, I understand. Yeah, Ron was definitely of stronger character in the book than he was in the movie. There are some people who complain that Ron was made to be a fumbling idiot in the movie, like more so than he's in the book, and they might be right. This moment is definitely, I mean, I love it in the movie. I think it's great. He's just like, whew, lucky we didn't panic when he was panicking the whole time. I think that's great. I love it. I think Rupert Grint really pulls it off well, and I don't blame the movie for doing it. But I do see what people mean when they're like, Ron's not that much of an idiot in the book as he is in the movie, but Ron's supposed to be the comedic, relief for the movie, so that's why they make him that way. But a lot of people feel like they do Ron dirty in the movies in that way. I can see why. I didn't notice really before, but the scene is definitely looks that way. This way, said Harry, pointing down a stone passageway, which was the only way forward. All they could hear apart from their footsteps was the gentle drip of water trickling down the walls. The passageway sloped downward, and Harry was reminded of Gringotts. With an unpleasant jolt of the heart, he remembered the dragons said to be guarding vaults in the Wizard's Bank. If they met a dragon, a fully grown dragon, Norbert had been bad enough. "Can you hear something?" Ron whispered. Harry listened. A soft rustling and clinking seemed to be coming from up ahead. "Do you think it's a ghost?" "I don't know. Sounds like wings to me." "There's light ahead. I can see something moving." They reached the end of the passageway and saw before them a brilliantly lit chamber, its ceiling arching high above them. It was full of small, jewel-bright birds, fluttering and tumbling all around the room. On the opposite side of the chamber was a heavy wooden door. "Do you think they'll attack us if we cross the room?" said Ron. "Probably," said Harry. "They don't look very vicious, but I suppose if they all swoop down at once. Well, there's no other choice. I'll run." He took a deep breath, covered his face with his arms, and sprinted across the room. He expected to feel sharp beaks and claws tearing at him any second, but nothing happened. He reached the door untouched. He pulled the handle, but it was locked. I find it interesting how these talented, powerful wizards set up enchantments to protect this stone, and these 11-year-olds are just flying by them. Has anybody wondered that? These 11-year-olds are able to tackle these. They're not keeping Voldemort out at all. They made it too easy. They made it possible to get to the stone. If they really didn't want Voldemort to get it, they would have made it impossible, but they made it so 3 11-year-olds could get past these enchantments to get the stone. They didn't think that through, did they? The other two followed him. They tugged and heaved at the door, but it wouldn't budge, not even when Hermione tried her Alohomora charm. "Now what?" said Ron. "These birds. They can't be here just for decoration," said Hermione. They watched the birds soaring overhead, glittering. Glittering? "They're not birds," Harry said suddenly. "They're keys. Winged keys. Look carefully. So that must mean..." He looked around the chamber, while the other two squinted up at the flock of keys. "Yes, look, broomsticks. We've got to catch the key to the door." See, doesn't that sound like something like... That sounds like a fun challenge. It doesn't sound like something to protect the stone. It sounds like, a fun puzzle. Like it's a computer game or something. It's a treasure hunt, Harry. "But there are hundreds of them." Ron examined the lock on the door. "We're looking for a big old-fashioned one. Probably silver, like the handle." See, Ron's smart. Ron put 2 and 2 together and figured out, well, maybe the key matches the door handle. They each seized a broomstick and kicked off into the air, soaring into the midst of the cloud of keys. They grabbed and snatched, but the bewitched keys darted and dived so quickly it was almost impossible to catch one. I like this better in the movie that it's just Harry. Notice how the movie sets it up? It sets it up so that each character gets their moment. With the Devil's Snare, Hermione gets her moment to show how smart she is, and how clever she is, and how her cleverness saved the other two in that first challenge. Where the second one, this is Harry, where he's a really good flyer, and he uses his seeker skills to get the key. And then in the next challenge, the chess challenge, Ron is the hero because he's so good at chess. And the movie did that on purpose. The movie wanted to show the unique strengths of each character, which makes it all, it's tied together well with Dumbledore saying points to Hermione for being knowledgeable, and points to Harry for being brave, and points to Ron for being good at chess, and all that makes sense when you think of it that way. The book is different because, here you have Harry, Ron, and Hermione all trying to get the key, which makes it not special to Harry. And there's more than just 3 challenges. There's a troll and potions to take, in addition to these the 3 obstacles that you find in the movie. And that is a case where I think the movie does it better. I like the book that there's extra stuff, and I like extra stuff, and just, I don't know, reading. I like the bit about the potions. I like the riddle. And I think it's great, but I think the movie just handles the theme, and it just does it better thematically. Not for nothing, though, was Harry the youngest seeker in a century. He had a knack for spotting things other people didn't. After a minute's weaving about through the whirl of rainbow feathers, he noticed a large silver key that had a bent wing, as if it had already been caught and stuffed roughly into the keyhole. So see, the book does establish it as Harry's challenge, I suppose. "That one," he called to the others. "That big one, there. No, there, with the bright blue wings. The feathers are all crumpled on one side." Ron went speeding in the direction that Harry was pointing, crashed into the ceiling, and nearly fell off his broom. We've got to close in on it," Harry called, not taking his eyes off the key with the damaged wing. "Ron, you come at it from above. Hermione, stay below and stop it from going down. And I'll try and catch it. Right now!" Ron dived. Hermione rocketed upward, the key dodged them both, and Harry streaked after it. It sped toward the wall. Harry leaned forward and with a nasty crunching noise, pinned it against the stone with one hand. Ron and Hermione's cheers echoed around the high chamber. They landed quickly, and Harry ran to the door, the key struggling in his hand. He rammed it into the lock and turned. It worked. The moment the lock had clicked open, the key took flight again, looking very battered now that it had been caught twice. In the movie's also better in that it made it more dramatic with the keys whirling around violently. It's much more exciting. "Ready?" Harry asked the other two, his hand on the door handle. They nodded. He pulled the door open. The next chamber was so dark they couldn't see anything at all. But as they stepped into it, light suddenly flooded the room to reveal an astonishing sight. They were standing on the edge of a huge chessboard. Behind the black chessmen, which were all taller than they were, and carved from what looked like black stone, facing them, way across the chamber, were the white pieces. Harry, Ron, and Hermione shivered slightly. The towering white chessmen had no faces. Again, they're not really doing well on the whole protective enchantments thing on the stone. If you didn't want somebody to get the stone, why make it possible? Why make a winner to the challenge? But now that I think about it, Dumbledore had a plan. I think Dumbledore wanted somebody to get the stone. Not Voldemort, but because that's why he made the whole idea if someone wanted to find the stone, all they had to do, find it but not use it, then they would be able to get it. We'll talk about that at the end. So Dumbledore clearly had it in mind for somebody to get the stone. Did he set up this whole elaborate puzzle for Harry, Ron, and Hermione to solve? I find that really unbelievable that he would do that. At the same time, though, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I don't know. It just seems kind of... It's really odd, but... I don't know. It's J.K. Rowling's first book, remember. Not everything is going to make sense perfectly. Now what do we do? Harry whispered. It's obvious, isn't it? Said Ron. We've got to play our way across the room. Behind the white pieces, they could see another door. How? Said Hermione nervously. I think, said Ron, going to have to be chessmen. He walked up to a black knight and put his hand out to touch the knight's horse. At once the stone sprang to life. The horse pawed the ground, and the knight turned his helmeted head to look down at Ron. Do we, have to join you to get across? I'm all thinking, you're talking to chess pieces, but that's how you play wizard's chess, is that you talk to the pieces. You don't actually move chess pieces. You talk to them. You tell them to move, and they move themselves. So that's actually not very odd. The Black Knight nodded. Ron turned to the other two. This needs thinking about, he said. I suppose we've got to take the place of 3 of the black pieces. Harry and Hermione stayed quiet, watching Ron think. Finally, he said, Now, don't be offended or anything, but neither of you are that good at chess. We're not offended, said Harry quickly. Just tell us what to do. Well, Harry, you take the place of that bishop, and Hermione, you go next to him instead of that castle. What about you? I'm going to be a knight, said Ron. Oh, it's so much better in the movie. It's so much better in the movie. As for me, I'll be a knight. I want that, tattoo. That's such a cool phrase. As for me, I'll be a knight. I love that. So much better in the movie. They tell you that the books are better than the movies. No. In some cases, no, that's not true. Not that the books are bad. I'm not knocking the books. Relax. Calm down. The chessmen seemed to have been listening because at these words a knight, a bishop, and a castle turned their backs on the white pieces and walked off the board, leaving 3 empty squares that Harry, Ron, and Hermione took. White always plays first in chess, said Ron, peering across the board. Yes, look. A white pawn had moved forward 2 squares. Ron started to direct the black pieces. They moved silently wherever he sent them. Harry's knees were trembling. What if they lost? That's a good question. Harry, move diagonally 4 squares to the right. Their first real shot came when their other knight was taken. The White Queen smashed him to the floor and dragged him off the board, where he lay quite still, face down. So Ron has to be careful to not get Harry and Hermione killed, on top of winning the game. Like, in chess, like, there's no way to win without losing pieces. But that's an extra challenge to try to win without losing pieces. Had to let that happen, said Ron, looking shaken. See, yeah, I told you. Leaves you free to take that bishop, Hermione. Go on. Every time one of their men was lost, the white pieces showed no mercy. And that note is important because it makes Ron's sacrifice sacrificial. You know, in the movie, it's kind of corny. You know, she stabs the horse, and Ron falls off, and it's like, Ron, get up. You're fine. But what you're supposed to get from reading this and watching the movie, I guess, is that they could get seriously hurt by these pieces. And that's why J.K. Rowling made it sure that these white pieces are actually destroying the black pieces. So if Ron has to sacrifice himself, he can expect to get really hurt. And that makes it important that he was actually making a real sacrifice. Soon there was a huddle of limp black players slumped along the wall. Twice Ron only just noticed in time that Harry and Hermione were in danger. He himself darted around the board, taking almost as many white pieces as they had lost black ones. We're nearly there, he muttered suddenly. Let me think. The White Queen turned her blank face toward him. Yes, said Ron softly. It's the only way. I've got to be taken. No! Harry and Hermione shouted. That's chess! Snapped Ron. You've got to make some sacrifices. I take 1 step forward, and she'll take me. That leaves you free to checkmate the king, Harry. But do you want to stop Snape or not? Ron, look, if you don't hurry up, he'll already have the stone. There was no alternative. Ready? Ron called, his face pale but determined. Here I go. Now, don't hang around once you've won. He makes it sound like he's about to die. Maybe he thinks he is about to die. He stepped forward and the White Queen pounced. She struck Ron hard across the head with her stone arm. Hit in the head, like the movie is different. In this case, the book is better. He actually gets hit in the head, like it looks like an actual injury. With her stone arm, and he crashed on the floor. Hermione screamed, but stayed on her square. The White Queen dragged Ron to one side. He looked as if he had been knocked out. See, I think the movie is actually better in this instance. I love how Hermione wants to go to him. She wants to help him. It's really sweet. But I also love that powerful moment when Harry's like, no, don't move. Don't forget, we're still playing. Oh, it's so good. I want to watch this movie right now. This part in the movie is genuinely really good. And that moment is better in the movie than in the book. Shaking, Harry moved 3 spaces to the left. The White King took off his crown and threw it at Harry's feet. They had won. It's also better when Harry's like, checkmate! Oh, so dramatic. So epic. So much better. Let me read that again. The White King took off his crown and threw it at Harry's feet. They had won. The chessmen parted and bowed, leaving the door ahead clear. With one last desperate look at Ron, Harry and Hermione charged through the door and up the next passageway. He's okay. He's okay, just leave him. What if he'll be all right, said Harry, trying to convince himself. What do you reckon's next? We've had sprouts, but that was the devil's snare. Flitwick must put charms on the keys. McGonagall transfigured the chessmen to make them alive. That leaves Quirrell's spell and Snape's. I like how they identify which professor made which challenge. They had reached another door. "All right," Harry whispered. "Go on." Harry pushed it open. A disgusting smell filled their nostrils, making both of them pull up their robes up over their noses. Eyes watering, they saw, flat on the floor in front of them, a troll even larger than the one they had tackled, out cold with a bloody lump on its head. "I'm glad we didn't have to fight that one," Harry whispered as they stepped carefully over one of its massive legs. "Come on, I can't breathe." So who does the troll belong to? They should have asked that question. And it's not hard to figure out because the next challenge is potions. That's obviously Snape. So then the troll has to be Quirrell. As Hermione just said, that leaves Quirrell's spell and Snape's. Quirrell's the troll. And so that makes you think, who let the troll in on Halloween? Probably the person that knew how to handle trolls. Quirrell. And they should have figured it out before that point. They should have figured it out now that Snape isn't the bad guy, it's Quirrell. He pulled open the next door, both of them hardly daring to look at what came next. But there was nothing very frightening in here, just a table with 7 differently shaped bottles standing on it in a line. "Snape's," said Harry. "What do we have to do?" They stepped over the threshold, and immediately a fire sprang up behind them in the doorway. It wasn't ordinary fire either. It was purple. At the same instant, black flames shot up in the doorway, leading onward. They were trapped. This part's fun, because this part you could actually do yourself. Hermione solves the riddle for you, it's no big deal, but if you wanted to, you could solve the riddle, which I did, which I liked to do as a kid. Even if I knew the answer, I still liked going through the riddle and answering it the way that Hermione does. It's a fun little puzzle for us to solve. "Look," Hermione seized a roll of paper lying next to the bottles. Harry looked over her shoulder to read it. "Danger lies before you, while safety lies behind. 2 of us will help you, whichever you would find. 1 among us, 7, will let you move ahead. Another will transport the drinker back instead. 2 among you on number hold only nettled wine. 3 of us are killers, waiting hidden in line. Choose, unless you wish to stay here forevermore. To help you in your choice, we give you these clues 4. First, however slyly the poison tries to hide, you will always find some on Needlewine's left side. Second, different are those who stand in either end, but if you would move onward, neither is your friend. Third, as you see clearly, are all different size. Neither dwarf nor giant holds death in their insides. Fourth, the second left and the second on the right are twins once you taste them, though different at first sight." Hermione let out a great sigh, and Harry, amazed, saw that she was smiling, the very last thing he felt like doing. "It's a Nancy Drew puzzle!" "Ah, I got this." Hermione plays Nancy Drew. This is exactly a Nancy Drew puzzle. It's not magic, it's logic. It's a logic puzzle. "Brilliant," said Hermione. "This isn't magic, it's logic. A puzzle. A lot of the greatest wizards haven't got an ounce of logic. They'd be stuck in here forever." "But so will we, won't we?" "No, silly." "Of course not," said Hermione. "Everything we need is here on this paper. 7 bottles, 3 are poison, 2 are wine. 1 will get us safely through the black fire, and 1 will get us back through the purple. But how do we know which to drink? Give me a minute." Hermione read the paper several times. Then she walked up and down the line of bottles, muttering to herself and pointing at them. At last she clapped her hands. "Got it," she said. "The smallest bottle will get us through the black fire. Hold the stone." Harry looked at the tiny bottle. "There's only enough there for 1 of us," he said. "That's hardly 1 swallow." They looked at each other. "Which one will get you back through the purple flames?" Hermione pointed at a round bottle at the right end of the line. You drink that, said Harry. No, listen. Get back and get Ron. Grab brooms from the flying key room. They'll get you out of the trapdoor and past Fluffy. Go straight to the Owlery and send Hedwig to Dumbledore. We need him. I might be able to hold Snape off for a while, but I'm no match for him, really. But Harry, what if you know who's with him? Well, I was lucky once, wasn't I? Said Harry, pointing at his scar. I might get lucky again. Hermione's lip trembled, and she suddenly dashed at Harry and threw her arms around him. Hermione? Harry, you're a great wizard, you know. Not as good as you, said Harry, very embarrassed as she let go of him. Me, said Hermione. Books and cleverness, they're more important things. Friendship and bravery and... Oh, Harry, be careful. You drink first, said Harry. You're sure You're sure which is which, aren't you? Positive, said Hermione. She took a long drink from the round bottle at the end and shuddered. It's not poison? Said Harry anxiously. No, but it's like ice. Quick, go, before it wears off. Good luck. Take care. Go! I think that moment is a little better in the movie. A little more dramatic over Ron's body. Over Ron's unconscious self. Hermione turned and walked straight through the purple fire. Harry took a deep breath and picked up the smallest bottle. He turned to face the black flames. Here I come, he said, and he drained the last bottle in one gulp. It was indeed as though ice was flooding through his body. He put the bottle down and walked forward. He braced himself, saw the black flames licking his body, but couldn't feel them. For a moment he could see nothing but dark fire. Then he was on the other side in the last chamber. There was already someone there. But it wasn't Snape. It wasn't even Voldemort. Who is it? We'll have to find out next time. Of course, we already know. But, yeah, I've already given away several times. Yeah, that's the end of Chapter 16. And then we have Chapter 17. And then we are done. And we can move on to Chamber of Secrets. So exciting. So, join us next time, next Saturday, right here on YouTube at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Chapter 17 of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and Chapter 1 of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Very, very exciting. Okay. So it is late. This is the longest Storytime Saturday stream I've ever had. 2 long chapters back to back, but they're exciting chapters. I barely even noticed the time passing. Great time. Lots to say. Lots of drama. It's perfect. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. Please leave a comment down below if you're watching the video after the fact, telling me what you thought of the video. And please leave a like on the video as well. It really helps. It tells YouTube that you like it, and it'll share it with other people. The more likes that it gets. Again, likes are very, very important right now because I'm not posting as much. So if I want my channel to grow at all, likes will be helpful. If you haven't already, click subscribe so you can get more content like this. Click the bell icon so you can be notified the next time I upload and the next time I go live. I will be going live again Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on YouTube, and we'll be playing more Nancy Drew Sea of Darkness. I want to finish that before spring. So we will be playing that. And then the next day after that, Saturday, right here on YouTube, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next Storytime Saturday. And I will be uploading. I'll be uploading more Nancy Drew, The Deadly Device this week, and possibly a building video for my Little Simsy wheel build challenge, my first build, and I'm also currently working on the second one as well. So look out for that, and maybe more stuff, hopefully, but that's all that's kind of on my radar right away. if you ever want to know ahead of time when I'm going to be streaming, if you want the link ahead of time, and you don't click on that notification bell, I don't know if you get notified for those. Maybe you do. I don't know. Follow me on Twitter. I am on Twitter at PhoenixGinny, capital P, capital G, and switch the E and the O around. I will notify you about what is going on there. Yeah. That is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a magical evening. Bye-bye.